Hi, my name is Porfidia. I'm with Modern Ancient Design, and today I'm working with a slightly different medium, food, which I don't typically do. However, I have been asked for at least 20 years for my salsa recipe, and it came from a restaurant in Leadville, Colorado, where I grew up. My father owned La Cantina starting in the 70s, but before that, my grandmother Adelia and her brother Robert, along with her husband Martinez, opened the grill, which sadly closed pretty recently. And so now I feel okay to go ahead and give the family recipe away. My grandma Adelia's recipes were used primarily at La Cantina, and then my dad went on to study restaurant management and worked to make it a really sustainable business, even through the ups and downs of the mines closing in Leadville. I think a lot of people wonder how that culture ended up in Leadville, Colorado, and it was a result of the mines closing down around the area of Cuesta, New Mexico, where they mined molybdenum, which is what was mined in Leadville, Colorado. So there was just this beautiful clash of cultures in Leadville, and there were some really good restaurants and food. So I remember there was Matilda's, Casablanca, The Grill, La Cantina. Those were some of the original restaurants there that really were rooted in New Mexico. So sadly, those are starting to go away. My salsa recipe, again, came from my grandma Adelia, who was from New Mexico. She was married off during the time of the Depression when she was 14 years of age, and so inherited some children and had to learn how to cook, and was often called upon for social events to cook. She was very much a perfectionist, very much the matriarch. I absolutely love my grandma so much, and so honoring her today, wearing her turquoise ring, and want to show you the recipe. However, over time, I have adapted it a bit, and I'll talk about the difference between the original recipe. The original recipe was done in large silver bowls, and the tomatoes were crushed by hand. Always have used Hunt's whole peel tomatoes. Don't make the mistake of using diced tomatoes or another brand unless you're using organic. The original recipe, back when food was food without all of the genetically modified things going on, the Frankenfood, they used quality ingredients. And so just make sure that you're using good quality ingredients. So they would kind of hand squeeze the tomatoes and cut the onions by hand, dice everything by hand, and so it was a pretty tedious process. And so I have sort of adapted that, and I'll show you how easy and quick it is. I did have to try and figure out measurements because, with a lot of cooking, it's kind of like this much and that much of that, pinch of this, pinch of that. So I feel like I'm often invited to parties specifically for my salsa, and if you know me, I don't really love going to parties, so this is going to be kind of a relief to me to share this recipe. So I'll take just a half an onion, just kind of get rid of that outer layer, throw it in the blender. Grandma didn't use a blender, definitely didn't, and I'm putting the chunks down first. So a half an onion, a jalapeno. And this is a really big jalapeno, so I'm just gonna cut that in two and throw it in the blender. So here I have a tablespoon of ground oregano, a tablespoon of chili piquin, a tablespoon of salt, and about a teaspoon and a half of garlic, minced garlic. Just dump all of that in there. Now, typically they would also use a pinch of cumin. I don't like that flavor, and so I don't add it to my salsa. The other difference is that I really love cilantro, and so I put about, typically I just grab a half a bunch and just wash it and throw it in here. I tried to figure out measurements, and so, maybe a cup and a half, and it definitely still has even some of the longer stems in it. But I throw the bigger ingredients down first. Grab all of that. So again, Grandma's original recipe did not have cilantro. And just kind of dump this in here. I'm gonna get it down to the bottom. We're almost done, and I know some of you are going to be really impressed impressed or excited that it's so simple, but also unimpressed that my famous salsa recipe isn't very complicated at all. And so then we just pulse it a few times. That's pretty much it. So just want to taste it, definitely see, sometimes I need more salt, sometimes I need more oregano. I would suggest that if you need to add some ingredients that you then just take some of it, because you don't want the tomatoes to get completely pulverized. You definitely want some texture. I would take some of the salsa, dump it back in the blender, and then add the additional salt or whatever. But you want to get it down until it's about kind of like this texture here. And that's it. Enjoy. And now that I've just shared my salsa recipe with you, I may as well just let you know what you can do with the salsa. I've never seen the salsa last for more than 3 days, so I'm not quite sure how long it keeps. That's gonna be a food safety question that I just can't answer. And again, as many times as I've made it in gigantic batches, it just gets eaten up. It's delicious. But for the guacamole, all you need to do is add some salsa to some avocados, some sour cream. Now I use Greek yogurt just because it's got some kind of probiotics and better qualities about it, and garlic salt. That's all you need. Smash it up and you have the perfect guacamole.